Rock and roll.
Take it away, good sir.
You good?
Yep.
All right, let's do this dance. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of Into the Lion's Den with your host, Christian Griffith. And today we have a very special guest with us. This is Andre Podpalucha with Step Denver. We have, over time, developed a little bit of a partnership and some assistance back and forth. And we thought we'd bring him in and discuss what you do, discuss the differences between nonprofit organizations and for-profit organizations, and just talk, maybe get a little vulnerable with why we're so invested into the work that we do. So I'll let you take the stage, introduce yourself, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Andre Podpalucha. I'm the Director of Operations for Step Denver. I'm also an alumni of the program. So Step Denver is a residential men's recovery program, and we focus on four core values of work, accountability, sobriety, and community. Right. So I went through the program about 2 years ago now. I'm a little over 2 years sober.
Congratulations.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
So just to give you a little bit more of the story there, I was addicted to meth, heroin, fentanyl.
Wow,
And,
the whole gamut.
Yeah, pretty much anything I could put in my body.
Mm-hmm.
I would. August 26th of 22, I tried to kill myself. I shot up some bleach, and I got knocked out. I passed out instantly, and my wife at the time, called the ambulance. And I was admitted to the hospital. And then I was put on a 9-month psych hold, right? So, which, looking back, I was completely insane, right? So, about 30 days went by, and they offered me to go to this program, Step Denver. I had no clue what it was. Our residents, you could stay at the campus downtown for up to 6 months, and then they have sober living homes that they own that we can go to for about a year and a half, 18 months. So.
Well, how long were you with Step Denver, or before you started working? So when you were patient, or would you call it patient, or
we call them residents?
Residents, okay.
Yep, yeah. Residents. So basically, it was a little over 90 days, and a position came up on the overnight. So I started off as a janitor, basically just cleaning the place at night, watching cameras and fielding questions from the other residents.
And you worked your way up to the Director of Operations.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I think it was a year and a half.
Yeah. Well, that's so obviously a pretty dark start to a really positive future.
Yes. So, I mean, at that point in my life, my family was no longer involved with me. I couldn't talk to them. Couldn't talk to my kids. There was restraining order that my parents put on me, and I lost my kids due to my addiction. My parents stepped in. They took them. They live in Connecticut with my parents, and I'm in the process of getting my kids back, which is great. I got a good job, right? Step Denver did so much for me, right? And a lot of people always ask, well, what's the difference between Step Denver and some other rehab? Well, I went to 18 other rehabs prior, since I was 14 years old. I entered Step Denver, I was 37. And people ask all the time, why? Why did Step Denver do it for you? And it's because it's not a 30-day program, right? The 30-day program that I've experienced in the past, they talk about addiction, and that's it, right? And then you leave, here's a meeting sheet, go find a meeting in the community, right? I don't have a place to live, I don't have a job, so I constantly
really
ended up...
easy to relapse, or recidivism, I think is the context, or the term. It hits home for me personally. I don't if you've watched any of the episodes from the past. I'm currently in my sobriety journey as well. Actually, I was actually just at the doctor's office, and we were doing some blood panels, and we were watching, numbers and things go down continually, and it was Great News Day. So it was,
nice.
I have a boring lab, which is actually a really good thing for doctors. But I didn't realize it, but I'm 16 days away from 4 years sober.
Oh wow!
Um,
Congratulations.
yeah,
That's
well,
huge.
I appreciate it. But
That's
my drug of choice was alcohol. Alcohol brought out the worst in me, and then it brought in the other things. But alcohol is the source of the issues for me. So obviously, my stories are probably a lot different than your stories. But I spent my time in actually recovery village out in Colorado Springs. I did rehab or intensive inpatient and then intensive outpatient. Stuff for quite some time that lasted like the actual therapy and things even outside of the residential stuff lasted about a year after I was gone. So they held on longer, and then we created groups and we created programs, and community is really what drives you with that. Like you have to make your decisions, but you also have to have support with those decisions. And so I think you're a testament to. I mean, if you've been in and out of 17 or 18 different places and this one changed things for you, that's a big deal.
no, it is like I was set up for success, right?
Hmm.
I had a job, right? We require all of our
Hmm.
residents to get full-time employment,
Okay.
right?
Is
So
that like a requirement to stay in the housing and things
correct,
like that? So they got to
correct.
pass certain things. That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then you also we require our residents to actually put away 20% of their income,
Okay.
right? So every check you're putting away 20%,
Sure. You
right?
teaching fiscal responsibility. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I mean, I left the program and in a year, and I put more than 20% away, right? I had that rule of thumb, like if I didn't spend it and it was in my check, and by my next check, it would all go to savings. And I left that program with uh, like $18,000 in my
Well,
account.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a good start.
Yeah.
That's
So
a
it's
good
like
start
when I
forward.
left there, like you have money,
Hmm.
you have a job,
Steady pay.
you know,
Yeah.
transition, eventually you transition to your own apartment,
Hmm.
houses, whatever.
Very cool.
So
Well, I'm proud of you. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know you well yet, but I'm already proud of you.
Yeah, I appreciate
That's
it, man.
impressive.
All
That's
right.
really impressive. So, um, well, is there anything else you want to dive into, and then the personal side of this conversation, or should
No.
we flip
Yeah.
into kind of the business side of it?
Yeah. Let's go on business.
Obviously, any of the regular listeners to Into the Lion's Den, our main focuses are it's self help, but always focused on business growth, leadership growth, team growth. And then the five F's. We don't. I guess I haven't spit that out a number of different times. It's just something I live by, which is faith, finance, freedom, fitness, and family. Right, the three things or the five things to really keep balanced in life. But everything that we talk about on this show usually is let's exchange our experiences and let's learn how your growth in your job as the director of operations goes, what the what's the business side of it, and stuff like that. We really try to target it towards entrepreneurs, leaders, that kind of stuff, so they can pull from it. So but I'm not really familiar with how a nonprofit really works. I understand there's a lot of fundraising that goes
Hmm.
into it, but I don't know, the ups and downs, the pros and cons, the stresses and the failures. So maybe you could kind of break us open to how a nonprofit works and that kind of stuff. That'd be cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, nonprofit basically,
Mm-hmm.
you're putting together your budget and you're just forecasting based on we hope to raise this money,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's like the first like challenge I believe,
Okay.
like would be you can't always predict, especially in my role, what's going to happen to the building,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, your boiler can go down, the toilets are clogged, you need new plumbing, codes are constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have to go out and raise that money.
Okay. What are your fundraising sources? What do you do the most?
So we mostly like private donors,
Okay.
like, and we just reach out to them. We have like open houses, and kind of just explain what STEP does. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people. There's I don't know one person that hasn't been impacted by addiction, right? One family,
I couldn't
right?
I couldn't bring up one person that has
So
a full team of completely clean and sober humans.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like I think it's one of those things because of that. Like
Mm-hmm.
people are like willing to give, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have people that give $10,
Mm-hmm.
right, all the way up to hundreds of thousands, right?
Right.
So
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I noticed when I was in my own recovery journey, I mean, I'm always in the recovery journey, but when I
mhm.
was in intensive, in rehab, it was really weird to me that the people that I was in this group with, because I thought that I was just kind of like like a failure, and I just kind of felt like I was screwing everything up in my life. But I also had certain accolades and things. I had already started this business at that point in time when I actually checked in. It was really early on, and I had a lot of accolades in life, and whatever else. I thought, maybe I'm a little bit different. This is probably kind of weird. When I got there were doctors, there were lawyers, there were business owners. I actually have a long-lasting friend who's a local business owner who was in there with me during my time in rehab, and it was really interesting to find out, the I guess I don't know, it's not a curse, but it doesn't addiction really doesn't what would be the term?
Doesn't discriminate.
Discriminate.
Yeah, doesn't
Exactly.
discriminate.
Yeah, and so it would make sense that there's lots of donors that have, are willing. They're very empathetic to the cause because they either felt it themselves, or they're have experienced it through their personnel, their people, their family, whatever it was. Yeah, that's Have you noticed that with some of the residents there?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen everybody like from the homeless population coming in. At one point, there was a doctor that came in. His kind of story was that he lost everything and became homeless, right? And if I remember correctly, I think he said he was like a brain surgeon at one point,
Wow.
right? Like, and
Gee, many, yeah.
and I get it. I can relate.
Yeah.
All the stuff I've lost.
Life just kind of slaps you in the face sometimes. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah,
It's
roll with the punches.
in church. Yeah, I'm not going to bring up spirituality. I know that's a foundational piece of like step programs and stuff. But in church, the pastors are always saying that. They're like, you can have a plan B or plan A, but God always has a plan B. Right. And that plan B sometimes is living through incredible chaos so that you can learn how strong you are.
Yeah, I always say that you got to get through the lessons to get to the blessings.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I like that.
So, but you're right. Like, life continues, right? I think as addicts, I know me personally, like I would make the little things like these bigger things, right? Like procrastinate, not get to them, not solve them, right? So that's something I think that anyone that's facing addiction needs to do, right? Like is really look, and that's what the steps do, right? Like they walk you through that process, how to do it. But like spirituality is definitely a big part of it. Like, and just trust, right? That's kind of like what you said was faith, right? Having the faith that there's a bigger plan, and whether you call it Jesus, the universe, I've even heard people say that the doorknob's my higher power, right? And hey, if that works for you, go ahead, right? But believing in something bigger than you and stop having control, right? Like,
yeah, I think it's just innate inside of people is that they want to know that there's purpose behind their existence, and if you don't buy into that or you don't actually pay attention to that, it's going to throw you off course. It's going to make everything that you do kind of meaningless until you realize you're killing yourself. And if you don't have that snap back to reality, then unfortunately a lot of people like you and I have gone a different direction. That was one of the things that hit the hardest for me when I was in rehab. Was he said there's only 3 outcomes for people that are in a place like this, and they said death, institutions, and jail. And at that point, I had been to 2 of them, and the only one I hadn't avoided yet, or that I've avoided at that point, was death. Right.
Similar story here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay, so it's all fundraising based. As far as like, do you have teams of personnel? How does kind of how do you manage the operation, and like what are the, I guess, let's just talk about the management of the operation.
Right. So we have an executive director, right, that oversees. We have a vehicle donation program. Okay. We have a marketing department. We have operations, and then we have programs. Right. Programs is focused more on like the residents, like are we achieving what we're supposed to? But it works very similar to a normal business, right? Like KPIs, goal setting, what's your strategy, 3 to 5 years. Like, so it's very similar, right? Procedures, guides, all that needs to be created and managed by the director of each department. And
so as a director of operations, what's your main focus, daily, weekly? What's kind of the goal in your leg of business?
So right now we're in this I'm trying to grow the operations department to be not so reactive. I feel like I'm putting out fire after fire after fire after fire,
Mhm.
right? And I want to go to more of a preventative maintenance plan,
Mhm.
which will hopefully prevent, this last minute, like, oh no, we got $50,000 we need to fix this, and
Mhm.
we could have planned it if we were actually checking and doing inspections and
Mhm.
just your PMing.
Sure. So as the operations director, you're kind of managing the facility. Is
That's
that
correct.
yeah?
So the facility, the buildings.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very cool. Um, so let's talk about growth. So let's talk about where you and the rest of your team with Step Denver intend to go with your organization. What's the 3 to 5 year plan? What's the goal? What's your vision?
So we're actually kind of about year 2, 3 on this plan,
Okay.
right? And we're going to be opening up a Colorado Springs down, or Step Colorado Springs, or
Mm-hmm.
Step Springs is what we're calling it, I
Step
believe.
Springs.
Right. So we're going to expand and try to replicate what we do in Denver
Mm-hmm.
for the population down in Colorado Springs.
What would you say are the things that need to fall in place, or the things that you guys need to achieve in order to make that happen?
And so we're currently working on funding.
Okay.
Right. We do we did select a building
Mm-hmm.
that we purchased.
Is the housing with the building, or is it separated? Like where your headquarters is that also where the housing
So
is?
yeah, it's residential,
Okay.
and they stay there for 6 months, and then
Mm-hmm.
they'll have the opportunity to go to one of our sober living houses, which is, basically a home in the
Mm-hmm.
community.
Mm-hmm.
5 bedrooms for.
And is it essentially like it's kind of like it's not a co-op, but it's just people who've been with Step for however long, and when a room opens up, it's open to them because they all share the same values of staying clean, staying sober, staying on the path.
That's correct.
Essentially, yeah.
Yep.
Very cool. So its funding is the biggest driver. Would you say that you have any things that need to be cleaned up operationally in order to really be able to be comfortable with that scaling or replicating?
Yeah. So right now we're in the process of looking at our policies, procedures, and guides,
Mm,
right, and writing them in a way that aren't Denver specific,
okay.
right? So we're reviewing all that and creating those documents so that we can, you know, easily bring it down to the Springs and
Hmm.
replicate it.
Yeah, we actually just talked a little bit on our last podcast about the essentially our 1 to 5 year vision, and then our 5 to 10 year vision, and what transitions there. And the biggest part of that was that, as an organizational leader or the owner of this business, my focal point has been for the last 5.5 years is to build an incredibly sturdy and very very strong foundation. I've never wanted to just pick up and move units until I knew this one was maximally efficient in every way that it can be. And a lot of that boils down to policy, procedures, documents, you name it. It has to be fine tuned. It has to be whittled away. All the duplication of work has to be gone. All
Mm-hmm.
of that type of stuff. And that's a lofty task.
It
Um,
is.
it takes some time, and then you as you investigate these things, you just sometimes stumble upon more problems that you're anticipating. So you're trying to plan for, hiccups and hurdles in the future and that type
Yeah.
of stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. Is there right now it's formulating it so that it's not Denver specific. Are there other things that your initiatives that you guys are doing internally that are kind of are going to stop you from this next goal until you've achieved it?
So, well, not really,
No.
right? Like it's really like kind of like what you were saying. What we're finding when we're going through the procedures part, especially, is that, oh, we're missing this piece,
Hmm.
or who does this, or why is that department and this department doing this?
Hmm.
Like what triggers what to happen when,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, the right cascade is what you need. It's we had to do this about 2 years ago. We brought in a consultant, and essentially The reason I wanted the consultant is because I wanted a sounding board, because I wanted to be able to bounce ideas off, but I also wanted a full, like, true investigation in from an outside perspective, just somebody who understands business, to see where our inefficiencies were. And the majority of the work that we did in all of that, he was here intensively for about 2 months, and then after that we worked, just kind of continuously for however long. But it was establishing roles and responsibilities was literally the hardest part of it, because we found out, our business was set up to, you know we formed it around people and that person individually, not a title, and not like something where you can plug and play personnel. So we had incredible vulnerabilities because that person's not there anymore. Well, what the hell are you going to do? You're going to create a new leg of business, or, so on and so forth. Are you guys doing some of
We
that
are
right now?
finding that too,
Yeah.
that roles were created based on an individual's skill set,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Like that may not be the skill set of the next person that comes on, right? So we're trying to take that in consideration as we're building it, right? Because this is like the first part in our head, right? And then it's formulating a job description, right? Like job responsibilities, retraining everybody, coming up with training checklists to make sure that people are properly trained, right? Like, so it's really highlighting a lot of like different areas. But I've done this before for another company that I worked at like a decade ago, right? Like we didn't have policies, procedures. So I did the whole thing and I love bringing a consultant in, right? Because just bouncing the ideas off them, like, hey, this is kind of what I'm envisioning. How do we get there? And they're like, decades of knowledge to say, well, that's not going to work, or hey, it works better this way. Unfortunately, we don't have that opportunity. So, we're trying to just use each other and bounce each other ideas. And
Yeah. But well, I mean, that's still a very valuable tool, because you have people who have the same vision. As long as the vision stays the same, then you can work together and march on the same beat, same,
yeah,
same,
yep.
same.
Yeah, and it's really like like you got to remember, right, putting the residents first, right? Like that's something that it's funny that I'm in this job, right? And just kind of backtrack a little bit. I pulled up the step, right, and it's in this neighborhood, tons of bars on the street, right? Larimar and like 20th, right behind the stadium, right? I mean, it's only a couple months ago, or not even, maybe a couple weeks ago, that they shut down the whole street in front of us for Oktoberfest, right? And then you got Step Denver rehab, right? So it's kind of funny. But I remember I got dropped off there, and I'm like, oh man, I was hoping I was going to go to one of them fancy rehabs.
Right.
And from the outside, it looks like a warehouse.
Right.
And I was like, where'd they bring me? Right. I'm like, oh, it's going to be dirty in there.
Start
Start psyching myself out.
Up, yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't want to go.
Yeah.
I don't want to go in there. It's going to be dirty. Right. It's not going to be clean. And then you go in and it's just spotless. Right. Like, our residents have to clean the house during their first 5 business days. Right. So it's incredible. It's incredible to be in the role of like ensuring the place is clean, that's in working order, right? And I get to design that today. Like, what does that look like?
You take a lot of pride in that, I'm sure.
Yeah. So
that's it's funny. It's like literally on the street next to all the bars.
Yep.
So they just kind of giving you one last test. It's like, are you going to walk in, or are you going to walk across the street?
Yeah. Well, what is the saying? They give you enough rope to either hang yourself with or pull yourself out.
Right.
Right. There's always a test right outside the door.
That's that's the thing. I mean, this was repeated over and over. I mean, it was when I was in rehab, you kind of just understood which ones were there on their own accord, and which ones were forced to be there based off the responses, and just kind of how they conducted themselves, and mannerisms, and how much they wanted to interact with the other people, and that kind of stuff. And that was kind of the methodologies. We're not going to force you to live this life. We're going to give you the autonomy to make your own choices, but we're going to give you a foundation to understand which choices are the better choices.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Like, working there, it's like, you don't get rich working at a nonprofit, right? But seeing somebody's lights come back on, or seeing them a year later and they're still sober, like, you're just
that's
like,
some
wow.
warm glow. Yeah, I
like,
bet.
like, it's just the feeling you get, like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know, I chased paper for a good decade,
Yeah.
right? Working in different Fortune 500 companies and in the financial sector, right? Like, and made a lot more money, but wasn't happy, right?
Right.
It's a job that doesn't feel like work,
Mm-hmm.
right? I go there, and it's such a small team
Mm-hmm.
that it's like we're a family, right?
Right.
They saw my growth, right, and I could see these other guys grow up. And,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm like, it's just impressive.
Yeah.
Like, it's just the
That's got
feeling you get.
that's got to be special. And it's something you
Just,
get to share with people. And yeah,
hmm
I mean, that's you just talk about humanitarian efforts and just anything that has to do with giving back. Pride. We're always. I was mentioning this before we started the show. It's very important. It's entrenched in the foundation of the organization that we want to give back as much as humanly possible, when and if possible. If we have clients, my favorite clients are the ones where we ran into a roadblock, and we found out, like, this person just they can't afford this, right? But they need it. They need it more than anything else. We can't find any other way to do it. And it wasn't the act of, like, giving the service, but it was the change in their face, the change in their demeanor. It's like, that's more payment than any dollar I've ever made.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that's what's nice about Step, right?
Mm.
Is we don't charge, like, we don't take insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't need insurance to come through the front door.
Mm-hmm.
All you got to do is have the will to stop, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the want.
Yeah.
Like, you got to be sick and tired of being sick and tired. Walk through that front door.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to help you get employment, right? And then there's a small fee,
Yeah.
right, associated. You do pay rent. And that's part
Mm-hmm.
of your accountability and responsibility. Um, but it gets you in the door,
Right.
right? Like, you don't have to have health care,
Wow.
right? Like,
You guys
and
are
it's
really doing
minimum
something. You guys are
cost,
really
right?
doing something special. It's very cool.
Yeah, and we're trying to do that elsewhere, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about the Springs, but
Mm-hmm.
we're also trying to go national,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're trying to bring this to the communities,
Mm-hmm.
and we're similar to what you were just speaking about, right? Like, we have we'll give it away,
Right.
like, if it helps another man, like, what's the value of one life?
Right. it's
How do you quantify that?
You can't.
Um,
Right. Yeah. It's like you guys are saving lives in a very different way than a doctor is. You're giving life back to them through
mhm.
just that. It's really cool.
And then just like the families, the kids,
Mm-hmm.
like seeing a guy get his kids back,
Yeah.
like, just so incredible. Like, oh, I got my kids back,
Right.
right? Like, I remember the feeling for me, like, I hadn't seen my kids in 5, 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was in recovery and getting my stuff together, and I got to go see them for the first time,
Wow.
right? 5 years, got to hug them, hold them. I got an 8-year-old. I haven't seen him since he was 3.
Wow. I bet that was special.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
Something you can carry with you as motivation. Just keep it going.
Yep. And then just, that's how we help the next guy, right? Sharing
Mhm.
our experiences, our stories.
Outside of the very cool, facts that you shared with me, what's your favorite part about being there?
Um, so what's my favorite part? It has to be the residents.
Yeah.
It really is, like, getting to talk to them, like, seeing where they are today, seeing them a week later,
Mm-hmm.
month later. We do this thing the last Wednesday of every month. Call it Cakes and Coins,
Cakes
right?
and
Where we
coins.
celebrate everybody's, like,
Mhm.
milestone,
Sure.
right? And seeing the guys get up for whether it's their 24-hour chip, their 30-day chip, year chip, 6 months chip,
Mm-hmm.
18, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have alumni coming back, 10 years, 4 years, 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And just seeing everybody in that same room,
Mm-hmm.
like, you get chills.
I,
Like, I'm always like, why is my hair
I got
standing
chills
up?
sitting here listening to you, because I
like,
can just feel it. It's you're celebrating accomplishments, which is you taking back your life.
yeah.
It's a big deal.
And that's what it is. Like, they're learning to live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
I mean, I won't squeeze too much of that juice out of my eyes here today, but it's very, like I said, it's very near and dear to my heart. I lost a lot of things through my own addiction, and it's really difficult to really just bootstrap yourself when you've hit that bottom. It's really difficult. It says a lot about the character of the person if they walk through that door. and you're a testament to that. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just, and I get to see that every day now,
mm-hmm.
right? Like, so going through the program, it's kind of like what you were talking about earlier, right?
Mm-hmm.
The opposite of addiction is community, right?
Yep.
Connection,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you feel that instantly at Step,
Mm-hmm.
like, and even still to this day as an employee, like I'll see a guy that just came in, doesn't have much, right? And then you'll see one of our older residents like, hey man, come on over, want half the steak,
Yeah.
right? And feed the guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Giving back,
Mm-hmm.
like, and it's just that feeling like of how the residents take care of each other.
It's like natural reciprocity. It
So
just
so beautiful, like.
even giving something back, and all you want to do is give to the other people in that position,
Mhm.
right? You felt it, you understand it, and you know each other on a different level. We had a topic that we went over in for the 4 series topic. What it was the lessons wrestling taught us, right? Because that was my sport of choice. I loved wrestling, and whatever. But there's an instinctual respect when you know another wrestler, because you know what grueling tasks they've forced themselves to go through, so you immediately know the other person. This is the same thing, just in a whole different world. It's like you understand at a different level. I don't understand your experiences. I didn't struggle with the same things, but we had the same issue, which is inability to care about ourselves enough to put a stop to it and
Mm-hmm.
start putting life back into ourselves.
Yeah,
And
no,
so I
it
get it.
was the first message I heard,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like at Step was, look for the similarities, not the differences,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And I was just like, I don't know why it hit in that moment, but it did.
Yeah.
Right. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Like I could do that. Like we have different stories, but I can feel your pain, your suffering.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And most importantly, I want what you have, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, you're in recovery. Like you're getting your life back together. Like, gotta lead by example, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like I was like, oh, I want what that guy has.
Yeah. And you feel a responsibility to the people that you've met and you've developed all this stuff with too. It's like on those times where you're feeling low and you're feeling like it's not worth it, and you just remember the community that's a driving force in and of itself.
It is. It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, they made us, when I was in Recovery Village, they had us write evasive action plans, and we put it into our journal. I don't know if you guys do things like that, but they made us write a letter to ourselves and seal it and place it in a spot where we always know where it is. I know exactly where mine is right now, right?
That's cool.
And it's like when you know you're falling down those slippery slope type of situations, and you're starting to lose all of your not excitement but motivation towards this lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
You pull it out and you read it to yourself, and it's a blast from the past of how you were feeling when you're at your lowest point.
That's cool. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's actually a great suggestion. I'm gonna bring that to the table
Yeah.
next week.
No, it was really cool. I mean, it was sealed. I unsealed it because I didn't realize which letter it was, and then I read it, and I was just gushing, just I'm about to cry sitting here talking about it, because it was like, when I went in, I had my son. I wasn't able to be around him for an extended period of time. It's not 5 years, so I feel you with that one. That's rough, but it was like that was my driving force when I first went to recovery or went into rehab. My intention was literally just to look good doing it. And I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make so I got myself in trouble, legally and whatever. I was like, I'm going to look good to my fiance. I'm going to look good to the judge. I'm going to look good to my family. I'm going to look like I'm good putting it together. And then when it's all levels out, then maybe I'll figure it out from that point. And then they were sitting in there. I remember it was Dr. Martinez, and he had this group conversation, and he's like, he had us bring a picture with us or something that's like a very just something that's a token of like it's important to you. And I took a picture of my son, and it wasn't just any picture. It was a picture of my son that my sister took a couple of weeks after I had got myself in a bunch of trouble. And so not only was it my son, like my life, but it was a picture where I wasn't even there because of the position that I was in. So it had multiple meanings behind it,
Yeah, that's deep.
And he asked me, he's like, what's the picture? Why'd you bring it? So on and so forth. And he said, Christian, do you realize every time you take a drink, you're saying to your family and to that son that's in that picture that alcohol is more important to you than he is. I lost it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
we couldn't even continue that conversation. I had to step out of the room for a little while, and that's when it changed for me. And I was like, enough is enough.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
My priorities changed that day.
I get it. I get it. It's tough. Like, I can remember once I started talking to the kids again, she was 15 at the time. She wrote me a letter. I always used to think like, well, I'm putting the drugs and the alcohol in my body. It's not really impacting anybody else, right? It's just selfish, not thinking about others. And my daughter wrote a letter, and it was just like explaining the person I was and what she saw me as. I was like, wow, that's an ugly, dark man that I never want to be again.
Right.
And then, like, for my 15-year-old to say, I'm proud of you. I'm like, no, I'm supposed to be proud of you, right? Like, and it gets just crazy to see how it impacted her. Like, she talked about, like, how she had to grow up, raise the two, like, help raise, because mom, their mother, and myself are both addicts. Met in rehab.
Wow.
And left and started getting high together and never really stopped, right?
Yeah.
So to see how it impacted the kids and hear that from her, right? Like, and then for her to close on, like, I'm proud of you. Like, I love you. I know you're better than this. Like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before recovery, I was like, I'm a man, right? We don't cry. Like, today it's like, someone called me humble a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, all right, don't want to do this.
That's the most wild concept, I think, through all my recovery journey, is understanding this. The stronger you become, the more vulnerable you also become.
Yes.
It's wild, because I've always been like a boxed in person. Like, I do not want anybody to know what's going on inside of me. I don't want them to worry about me. I don't want them to think about me. The only thing I want anybody around me to think is I'm crushing it. That's it.
Exactly. And then to learn it's okay to, not be okay. And
it's okay to set boundaries. It is okay to tell people how you feel when you feel it. It is okay to explain yourself and cry if you need to.
Yeah,
that's a big deal.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Like, and then to, like, really kind of live that way and just continue that way. It's like I had to learn my feelings again. I'm like, everything came off as anger.
Right.
Whenever I got my first job, because that required me to get a job. I'm like, got this first job working at 7-Eleven. I was like, I'm so mad I got to go to work. Like, it just came off as being anger, right? But like, deep down I had like all these other issues I had to figure out, right? Like, and really just self-love, right? A lot of it is, can you look at yourself in the mirror? Do you love that person?
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to do. Really hard.
You gotta take a lot of large horse pill size swallows of reality and realize we've been fucking it up.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. That's for sure.
But well, I appreciate you telling me all of the things that you guys are doing. I know we've had a number of people inside the office over time who are in their recovery journeys, and we kind of band together and we talk about it and that kind of stuff. But I didn't know until today really a lot of what you guys are doing, and now I'm really excited about what it is you're doing down there.
Well, if you're ever in Denver, come stop by. We'll give you the tour.
I'd love to. We'll meet some residents and
give
them, just say good job.
Yeah. Or even if you want to stop by and kind of tell your recovery stories to the guys, we'd be happy to have you.
Sure. Yeah, I know that it's kind of weird. When I was in there, I had a lot of people, because I was talking about my consumption amounts and whatever, and I had guys that are like, man, that's some bitch shit, They're like, I put down 2 handles a day I have for the last 20 years and that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, I guess I am a little bit of a bitch, because that was already ruining my life where I'm at. So.
Yeah. Well, and it's like we say, like, it's not about how little or how much you used, right? Like, it's about the getting better.
Yep.
The climb, the journey afterwards, right? Like, hey, not everybody has the same low.
Yeah. Well, I'm a firm believer that Like I said, I try not to overly do. Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's very important to me. The spiritual journey and the growth with my faith is it's. I'm a firm believer that God doesn't put obstacles in people's ways that He doesn't think you're strong enough to overcome. And I think that that's on purpose because it forms you into a better person and it allows you to have the influence over the people, or not over the people, but the positive influence in the people around you to help them step forward and step up. Pun intended,
Yeah,
right?
right.
And
Yeah.
so it's we've learned what our limitations are, and we understand what the consequences of going against the grain and the things we know about
Mhm.
ourselves are. And it's very easy for me every single day to stay committed to that same cause. It wasn't at first, it took about a year and a half really for me to get to a point where I just wasn't there wasn't the same triggers, and there wasn't the
Mhm.
same um, just like urges, I guess, and
Mhm.
stuff like that. I stopped dreaming about drinking because
Oh
that was a
yeah,
big deal,
yeah. No, I have that issue. Every time I come up on a large milestone,
Yeah.
like I start having drug dreams,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
Isn't
what's
that the
going on
weirdest?
here?
Isn't that the weirdest thing? It's always right around I call it a birthday.
Yeah,
You guys
yeah,
call it
no,
right around my second birthday.
yeah.
Whatever. It's like you start having these weird dreams. Like I'll wake up in a panic, and
Mm-hmm.
because like in my dream I was shit faced, wasted, and then like I've had times where I've woke up and still felt like I was drunk, and really felt like I was in that, like I screwed up,
Yep,
you
yep.
know.
I say you
Yeah.
feel so dirty afterwards. You're
You
like,
do,
ah.
and then you let a couple minutes go by, and you're like, wow, I'm still proud of myself. We're good.
Well,
Yeah,
I work in recovery, so I'm subjected to the same UA process and
yeah,
breathalyzer,
yeah,
right? Like, so
yeah.
I'm like, I can't go to work.
I just lost my job.
It's all just a dream.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So.
No, I have a couple of my friends that I still communicate with in recovery. They have some similar things. It's like there's the dreams, there's the urges around the birthday. There's certain things too that like I'll still have these weird thoughts in my head, like where it's like Saturday afternoon, it's hot outside, and there's people sitting outside chopping it up in a brewery, and I'm like,
Hmm.
so that's the thing that I miss, is like there's just like that, like whatever it was, the camaraderie or whatever. And I'm like, that's
Hmm.
fucking stupid. Why am I thinking like this?
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like
Exactly.
I got the camaraderie now. I may not be Frank the Tank, party manipulator here, and let's
Right.
move this thing forward. But it's like I'm okay with who I am while I'm sober.
No.
If you're not, maybe we're not the right people for each other.
No. Exactly. Exactly. I could
Yeah,
totally relate.
yeah.
Totally relate to that.
Yeah. You got anything else you'd like to share about Step before we close her off?
No. So I just wanted to thank you guys because you guys have donated like multiple repairs to help us out. So we
Absolutely.
really appreciate that.
Mhm.
I believe the Michael Jordan of roofs, Paul.
Yeah.
Like he was wonderful to work with, right? Like so, I
Shout
just
out to
want to shout
Paul.
out to him, Tara, for the communication,
Mhm.
getting it all scheduled,
Mhm.
timely. Like it was like called you, and like a couple days later, you're there. Michael Jordan of roofs over here. Like he explained it in a way for like someone that's not a roofer,
Mhm.
right? To be able to explain it to like why do we need to do these things,
Yeah.
right? Like or what's going on, and be able to explain that to our executives and my boss and
So, audience that's watching, hopefully, Paul, you watch these videos. Paul Mashburn, he's the absolute goat when it comes to. He has won awards literally,
really.
in because obviously every section of business has their own things, but he's won repair awards with his last organization. He found a pinhole size, like the needle, a pinhole size hole
Uh
that
huh.
7 different roofing companies were unable to fix over the course of 4 years, and they couldn't figure out where it was coming from, and he found it,
It's
cleaned
incredible.
it up,
It's
right?
incredible because like I know a
Mhm.
little thing,
Mhm.
a little bit about water, right? It's
Mhm.
it's gonna run the path of least resistance,
Right.
right? So it's like I'm like, how did he know that this leak over here on top of the roof was impacting this stairwell and leaking through? And like, it was just impressive. But
Paul,
like,
you're a Jedi.
yeah,
You heard it from the source.
yeah.
So that's awesome. Well,
So
we would love to help any way that we can. Appreciate you coming on. And viewers, if you've made it this far along, please do anything and everything you feel that you have within your power for Step Denver and their growth. We're really excited for you. I can't wait to see you. Not only do multi units in state, but get to that national reach. If everybody that you onboard and that you bring into the organization are as passionate about it as I can feel from you, you guys are going to do wonders, and it's going to be
that. Thank you.
positive light in the world. So, very, very cool. Anything else?
I think that's gonna be it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that's it for today's episode. So please like and subscribe, engage in the content. If you have any comments that you'd like to ask, questions about STEP, if you need any information on how to donate or how to become a participant or a vendor or a fund, sponsor, please reach out. We'll direct you in the right place.
Yep. Or you can go to stepdenver.org.
There we go. We plugged it in. Stepdenver.org. We appreciate your time.
And appreciate you having us.
I guess that's it for today. We'll catch you next week. Thanks. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Into the Lion's Den. We appreciate your time, and we hope that you've gathered enough ammunition to go out, fight the good fight, and become a better person every single day. Please like and subscribe, engage in our content, ask us some questions. We'd love to tailor fit the next episode to you.